You ready? All right, if I could get everyone's attention down here. I know it's been a full morning, lot of great content to hear from, hopefully. What about those 4 students? Were they amazing? And really, actually, even the students, what about Antonio from Berkeley, that little video he said? That thing is social media gold. We will be showing that again and again and again because he is a great representative of this college. So speaking of UC Berkeley, I want to introduce Dr. Victor Rios, who is our presenter today. He actually earned his PhD in Comparative Ethnic Studies from Cal Berkeley, and he's also a professor right now at the Department of Sociology at the University of California, Santa Barbara. So he's a peer faculty member to many of our faculty members here. In addition to being a professor, he's also an award-winning author, speaker, and we are thrilled to have him here today. I'll note Dean Sue Gotchis, who's now went on to Cabrillo. She's still working for us because she brought us Victor before she left. And I spoke with her last night. She said she was going to tune in to see your speech. So I thought that was pretty cool. So Dr. Rios has a very compelling personal story. I'm going to not steal that thunder. I'm going to let him tell his story. But I think his story is really a testament to the power of education and the power of educators and what you could do, even when you don't think you're making a difference in a student's life, how much of an impact it could have. And he's really here today to discuss impacting lives through meaningful contact and the role of emotional support in the lives of our marginalized and some of our most underserved populations, student populations. So please join me in giving a warm Lake Tahoe Community College welcome to Dr. Victor Rios.
Thank you. That's a very wonderful welcome. Thank you very much. Sometimes what happens after high school, even in high school, we do a lot of research in high schools actually. Once kids get past really 6th grade, educators begin to make assumptions about kids, and the assumptions are that, hey, they don't need as much emotional connection as when they were younger. And now they need more content. And so in the education literature, we call that informational and instrumental support. And that's what sort of teachers learn to do with kids as they develop into adolescence and then as they transition into higher education. So as educators, we tend to provide them a lot of informational and instrumental support, which is essentially the content. These are the learning objectives. This is the syllabi. This is what we're going to learn. These are the books you need to buy, and I'll be here to guide you through this knowledge that you will learn. And so we decided to do a series of studies where we would uncover how much emotional support is really needed by high school students, and now we're doing more and more college students, 4-year college students. And what we're starting to find and uncover is that emotional support is very important, and it's actually craved differently or hankered for differently by different class groups. So if you come from the working class, you tend to hanker for emotional support a little bit more than if you come from a middle class population. So in the breakout session later on, we'll get into sort of the data. But for now, I just want you to keep that in mind, because as I move forward with the presentation now, you'll see this connection between this narrative and then this sort of message, universal message about connecting with our students at an emotional level, or the way we're phrasing it today, that meaningful contact. And we'll go back and forth, because again, in higher ed, we tend to sort of assume that the students are there to gather content and then go work on that content, come back, take the exam, and then move on to the next course. There's something else operating, and that's crucial for us to keep in mind. So before I continue, I do want to show just a short video clip that tells you a little bit of my story.
Now, another in our series on the nation's high school dropout crisis. Tonight, one man's journey from gang member and dropout to professor, and his efforts to keep other young men from making his mistakes. Ray Suarez has our American graduate story.
My name is Victor Rios. In 1994, this was me. I was introduced to the nation in a Frontline documentary. I was a gang member, a juvenile delinquent, and a high school dropout.
But in the 18 years that followed, Victor Rios earned his high school diploma, finished college, earned a PhD from the University of California at Berkeley, and wrote 2 books on his life and his research on juvenile delinquency. He now teaches sociology at UC Santa Barbara and helps at-risk youth navigate the perils of adolescence.
I'm sure you're closer to some people than others.
Rios is also a family man with a wife, Rebecca, and 3 children. Life is constantly busy.
To be this far into the future, I feel like I've lived 2 lifetimes. 2 lifetimes. That's an important theme to keep in mind as an educator in the system of higher education, particularly in the community college system, because if you think about it, the community colleges in this country are sometimes the final frontier of hope for many of marginalized populations. If you think about it, in California, when we work with kids, and later on in the breakout sessions we'll show some videos of some of the kids we work with, these are high school pushouts or high school dropouts, and the #1 place we collaborate with to send them back to school, even if they only finished 8th grade, is the community college. The #1 place we collaborate with and that will open their door, even if they've been to prison and now are being released, is the community college. The #1 place, the only place that will accept these individuals as they come with whatever educational, linguistic level that they have, literacy level, is the community college. You become the final frontier of hope for many of these young people and people at all ages, actually, of the age spectrum. So you are a system of second chances, the epitome of a system of second chances. And so you have the power to transform lives, not just to teach the content, the subject matter that you are an expert at, but also to transition people to another phase of life, a more productive phase of life. And then sometimes, you know, we're definitely good people, we're educators, we go into education to help others, but in the systems we're in, sometimes we lose track. We lose track of our purpose. And so sometimes we buy into the system's logic. And in many places, there's ways in which we describe the populations that we work with that become a deficit perspective. So here's an example. So what do education institutions think? I'm going to show you a picture, and this is actually me when I was a kid, there with a group of fellow gang members. That's me right there. Throwing up gang signs. And what do people think when they see this group of gang members, gang bangers, criminals, delinquents? Then later on in a study I conducted in Oakland, California with 40 juvenile delinquent boys, and I wrote a book about this. My first book was about these young men that I watched grow up in Oakland. You know, when we see this picture of them, one of them's holding a Hennessy bottle. He's 14 years old. It's the middle of a school day. This young man has a blunt, a marijuana blunt in his mouth. They just tagged up the wall, throwing up gang signs. So what does society think? What do education systems think? Are these individuals at risk, or are they at promise? Well, the way society sees them is they're at risk. In California, the education code still has the word at risk as one of its categorical programs, right? So at-risk populations. You see, here's the problem with at-risk, is that what you label me determines how you will treat me. So if you label me as a risk, you're going to end up, your solutions for me are going to be deficit-based, right? Risk-based. So we have to transition, right, from seeing the students we work with as risks, deficits, threats, to assets, right? So not, what is wrong with the student population, but more so what has the student population been through? And then what are the assets? What are the important components that they bring to the table? Certainly they have some assets. And a lot of these populations that have been underserved, left behind, marginalized, one thing they do know is to be resilient, right? One thing we refer to as street smarts. A lot of these individuals are street smarts. And how do we translate that to school smarts? From street smarts to school smarts. Using that hustle that they learn in their environment and bringing it into the education institution and then learning to hustle there in a productive way. Okay, so my story really begins when I'm very little. A lot of you have DACA students, and you might not even know it, right? You have undocumented students, you might not even know it. But I was born in Mexico, and my father, he abandoned us before I was born. And my mom worked, 10 hours a day, 2 jobs sometimes, and she couldn't afford just basic food for us. And I was going hungry as a little kid, and my brother was going hungry, and she decides to try to get us to the land of opportunity. And so we tried to cross the border. They didn't allow us into the country. We were poor and uneducated. So we ended up crossing through the desert, risking our lives. And we got to a beautiful city in the United States that was this promised land. A place of opportunity, a place where my mom, in her imagination, was going to get a job and maybe buy us a house. This city of dreams was Oakland, California. In the 1970s. Not the Oakland, like gentrified Oakland of today, the Brooklyn of the West Coast. No, I'm talking about Oakland, California, deindustrialized Oakland, California of the late 1970s, where we literally would walk down the main thoroughfare, now it's known as International, and every other building was boarded up. The town was shut down. And we arrived there, my mom gets a job, her boss tells her, I'm going to pay you whatever I want. If you tell anyone, I'll call immigration, so they send you back to Mexico. She took this job, and with this little bit of money, she got us this tiny apartment. But this apartment was in a condemned, dilapidated building. No one should be living here, and yet the landlord was taking advantage of the poor. And so the crack addicts would break our window to steal our little stuff that we had, and we would ask the landlord to replace the window, and he would put up a piece of plywood. We couldn't afford the electricity bill, so sometimes we just ran an orange extension cord from the neighbor's house just to get a light bulb on. The situation got so bad that one day my little cousin, he's my neighbor, he's 2 months old, he's sleeping in his crib, and we had big rats. And the landlord wouldn't get rid of these big rats. And they crawled on his crib in the middle of the night while all the family was sleeping. 2-month-old baby. And they began to chew his face up. They chewed his lips, his gums, his cheeks. By the time that his mom got up and turned on the light and realized what was going on, Little baby was in a pool of blood. Ended up at Children's Hospital. His little face had to be fixed. And by this time, I'm a teenager, and I tell myself, man, I don't want to live like this anymore. I don't want to be poor. So in 8th grade, I decided to drop out of school and get a job. I walked to the landscaper's house, the gardener. I asked him for a job. He said, no, you're too little, go back to school. I said, his name was Johnny. I called him Johnny. His name actually was written, it was a landscaping service. And it was written on this extended cabin pickup truck he had. And the name of his business started at the back of the pickup truck. And it ended at the front of the pickup truck. And the name of his business was Juan Jose Maria Guadalupe de la Garza Landscaping Services. So I just called him Johnny. He said, hey Johnny, hey Holmes, let me get a job. My mama's broke. That's when he said, no, go back to school. I said, hey Johnny, pay me whatever you want. Oh, pay you whatever I want? Okay, get in the car, let's go. I had got a job. And it felt good to have a job. I was going to be a man. I was going to pay the bills. I was getting my mom that house she thought she would get when she got to America. I was going to buy nice clothes and new shoes. Take girls out on dates, to the movies. So I'm pushing lawnmowers with Johnny 10 hours a day at rich people's houses in the Oakland Hills. One day we get to this rich lady's house, and it's a three-story Mediterranean style, Spanish tile roofs. You go to the back, and there's a swimming pool with a waterfall. There's even a statue of a little boy peeing in the pool. I go to the front. This lady rolls up in a baby blue Mercedes-Benz. She's got curly white hair. She gets out of her car, she's holding a little white dog with curly white hair. And I say to myself, when I grow up, I want this house, I want this swimming pool, I want that little boy peeing in the pool, I want this baby blue Mercedes-Benz, and I want the dog with the curly white hair. And if I work hard enough, I'll get these things in life. Work hard. Think about it, this is a working class logic. There's an intent to this story, and that is that the working class, and you probably work with a majority working class population, there's one thing you can't take away from us, and that is our work ethic. And so as educators in higher education, right, if we could translate to the working class that working hard, right, plus working smart equals success, then we've done our jobs. Because they already know how to work hard, right? Your part of the equation is working smart, right? And that's where not just your content comes in, but that emotional twist to the content. Why? Because the working class thrives on emotional connection from individuals that to them represent a system that isn't representative of them, a system that has left them behind, a system that looks down on them. Even if you grew up working class, you're still part of a system. And when they walk into your classroom, you have a lot of power. And when you present your syllabus in a dry kind of way, we're like, you're either going to fail or succeed. Or UC Santa Barbara, where the chemistry professor says to an audience of 500 students, half of you are going to fail this quarter. Period. Or the psychology professor is influenced, right, told by the department, you have to fail a third of these kids. That's our policy, right, because of enrollment issues in the major. right? That's a failure. That's a purposeful failure targeting a specific population, the working class, because you know that the working class are the ones that didn't get that preparation to pass that chemistry class. You know that the working class are the ones that didn't get that preparation to know how to navigate a higher education classroom. So this is rampant everywhere, right? It's at my institution, and I'm sure if I dug deep enough today with you, some of you would report that, would tell me, yeah, I do it, or so-and-so does it, right? So it's a matter of making our institution work for a class that we particularly haven't been open to in higher education. So anyway, the Mercedes-Benz, the baby blue Mercedes-Benz. I'm thinking that working hard, pushing lawnmowers is going to get me this nice house. And at the end of the day, 10 hours a day of work, Johnny's paying me $1 an hour, $10 a day. So I start stacking up my chips, saving my money, and I get home one day, my mom's at the door waiting for me, realizing that I haven't been in school, and she tells me, I don't want your help or your money, I want you to go back to school. So I went back to school, and this is where I got caught up with the wrong crowd, caught up in the street life. I ended up stealing cars, going to juvie for grand theft auto, felony, getting out, and thinking I earned my stripes, feeling proud of myself. So the logic at the time was, you know, this is kind of a rite of passage for me, going into juvie. So I'm not learning my lesson, I go back in, I come back out. But the system would tell me, right? So I would go into juvie and they would say, we're going to teach you a lesson. And I was this kid that didn't care, so I'm like, all right, bring it on. And so they send me into this cell with a boy that was older than me. He was 17, I was 14, and he was supposed to like beat me up, and that's how I would learn my lesson. And this boy starts talking to me. He says, what you in for? I said, I stole a car. He's like, what kind of car? I said, this old like Toyota, like piece of crap. And he's like, oh man, don't steal those. Like, steal high performance cars, like, you know, like Camaro Z28s and Buick Grand Nationals and you know, nice cars. I go, I don't know how to steal this. He goes, don't worry about it, I'll teach you. Think about it, right? And this is my work in reforming the juvenile justice system, is that the system's teaching us a lesson by being punitive, harsh, and the outcome is more criminality, right? Because then I leave learning how to steal a high-performance car, and I end up stealing a Camaro Z28. You know, he pretty much told me to go to the flea market, buy a long screwdriver, and break the steering console, and there's a rod, and then you pull the rod, and then you got yourself a high-performance vehicle. So, you know, that was never going to be a good career for me because I kept getting arrested. So I ended up in juvie for the third time on 150th in San Leandro. And I'm not learning my lesson. I get out, I'm on the streets, and one day my best friend and I that I had grown up with from when we were little went to the other side of town to visit some girls we met, got into a fight with some guys we didn't like. They pulled out a gun, they shot at us, and my friend, a 15-year-old kid, was killed. And it's at this moment in life where I could have gone two ways. I could have gone to prison or maybe death. I'm sitting in front of this liquor store one night, late night, 2, 3 in the morning, and I'm thinking, like, literally pondering where I'm going to go, prison or death. And then a little like voice in my head, like, wait, you remember what she said? Just like that, I said it like that. I was sitting on the stoop. I'm like, you remember what she said? And then I'm like, you know how you talk to yourself? Like, you remember what she said? Yeah, I remember. Okay. Maybe you should go talk to her. I had nowhere to go, but one adult in my life, one adult, had one day told me she would be there for me. This was my teacher. And I go back to school. I hadn't been in school in weeks. I go back to school and I'm looking for her. I'm walking down the hall and she comes out of her door. She says, Victor, are you okay? I heard what happened. And I'm trying to be a tough guy, so I'm like, yeah, I'm all right. And she taps me on the shoulder and she says, I know you're not okay. And right when this lady tapped me on the shoulder, all my pain, all my fear, all my anger began to grow. And I began to cry like a little kid in front of the whole school. And you know what this teacher did? She opened up her arms, she gave me a hug, and she said, Victor, I am here for you. If you're ready to change your life around, I'll be here for you, but you have to do the work. And she had told me that once before, but I wasn't ready to hear it. And sometimes in this system, you'll see a lot of revolving door students. You'll see students coming in, leaving, coming back. You're like, wait, didn't I have you last semester? Right? Because they're not ready, but that's not your job to judge when they're ready and when they're not ready. Your job is to just let them know that when they're ready, you'll be there. Of course, you should expect them to do the work, but you should not be a person that judges whether they're ready or not. Right? You're essentially letting them know you're there, you have the material, you have the emotional support, you'll be there to back them up, but they have to do the work. And just as that consistent message is what makes a difference. So with the help of my teacher, I started getting back into school, started doing a little bit better, started improving little by little, kind of, she started convincing other teachers that I wasn't going to cuss them out anymore or be rude in class. And it was a socialization process. It took time. It's not like you go from being, right, this kind of looked down upon individual to all of a sudden a model citizen. It takes time, right? And it took me a while to learn. But with the support of my teacher and other educators that were really wanting to help me out, I ended up catching up with my credits, and I ended up graduating from high school on time and with my class. So emotional support is key to student motivation and transformation. That's the message I'm trying to drive home here. Emotional support equals meaningful contact. We keep saying that. Meaningful contact. Well, what does that mean? Let's break it down. Just, okay, emotional support. Oh, well, okay, that's peeling the onion a little more, but what is emotional support? Very concretely is when you let a fellow human being know, right, that you're there for them. Very concretely is when you let a fellow human being know that you're there to help them out to the extent that you can, right? And sometimes when I work with high school teachers, I give them a very concrete example that maybe could be translated here at the higher education level. But it goes a little bit like this at the high school level. So this is, let's say this is early senior year of high school. All right, here we go. Same classroom. Good morning, students. I have college application material for you here. You know, deadlines are coming up soon. Here's all the information you need. I'm going to hand this out to you. And just remember the deadline's December 10th for most of these applications, okay? Good luck. It's great, right? It's great. I mean, you're providing, because a lot of high schools are moving into college readiness, right? And having flags, call it different university flags on the banners on the wall, right? College-going culture. It's wonderful. And you're even providing them information. It used to not even be that way, right? Information for college. Now it is. It's there. That's what we call informational support, right? All the information you needed was there. Here's scenario 2. Good morning, students. Hey, listen, I have college application deadlines here. December 10th is the deadline for most. Be aware of that. Also have college application materials here. I'm going to pass them out. Hey, listen, every single one of you in this room has the potential to make it to college and graduate. I believe in you. And if you need help, you just let me know, okay? Thank you. Was that different than the first one? Yeah. And our research is showing that I didn't exert much more effort. But it's showing, right? Because a lot of teachers tell me, right? They'll say, oh, but I'm already working 50 hours a week. I know you are. But it's not about working an extra hour a week, right? It's about the way that you message yourself to the students. I believe in you. You can do it. Sounds cheesy, folks, but it works. But it works. So this is a first step. This is an entire system that's against these individuals that we teach. That's why they're sometimes coming in as using the community college as a final frontier of hope. But still, this is the first step to bridging that opportunity gap or that achievement gap. Okay, so here's a little bit, just really quickly, the neuroscience behind some of this emotional support work. Emotional states are associated with varying access to key parts of the brain required for learning. Negative emotional states, fear, anger, anxiety, have been linked to inhibition of prefrontal cortex or thinking part of the brain. Think about it this way. If I'm not having a good day, if I'm upset, if I'm depressed, physiologically, that pathway for me to learn from you is not open, because it's the same pathway to learning. Right? So how do we work with the counselors and the programs here to provide our students a platform where their well-being, is at a very basic kind of level taken care of, so that we can teach them. Right? If we team up, trust me, if we team up, if you just check in with some of the counselors, I know you have great counselors here. Community colleges have amazing. Where are the counselors? Raise your hand. All right. Woo! And other programs, where are the other student support programs? Raise your hand. All right. Woo! Just check in with them once in a while. Just say, hey, how can I help you guys with the students? They'll love it, because they won't say this. They're too modest right now. But I go to other community colleges and I ask them, how often does faculty reach out to you? Not often. Because we're intellectuals. We're just there to teach, we're experts, right? We're just there to teach our subject matter and then leave, right? I'm not saying all of us, but the culture is that way. It's a very stale culture. I'm just saying. I've been in academia for 12 years as a professor. And community college professors, instructors, they know the people. My father-in-law has been working as a faculty at San Francisco City College for 35 years. The way he puts it is 70 semesters. 70 semesters. He loves the students. He won't retire. He loves the students. And he sees the world there. He sees the guy that lives literally a block away under the overpass. And he connects with him. And he sees the person that has just gone through a transgender process. And he works with them. And he sees the 70-year-old that's returning back to school. And he works with them. So the world, right, the masses of the world come to you. You are sort of that group. So I know you know the population, how important it is to connect with them, to have that meaningful contact. We feel, therefore we learn, the relevance of effective and social neuroscience to education. So learning, attention, memory, decision-making, and social functioning are both profoundly affected by and subsumed within the processes of emotion. Again, that when we want to learn, we have to open up those pathways, and emotion gets in the way. If we want to think of emotion that's getting in the way, then let's think of it that way. Or we want to think of it the other way, right? That we need sort of a model that is beyond the Cartesian split of mind and body. And academia teaches us that here's the mind, and you're going to teach to the mind, right, and forget the body. And then we have to, like, that's an old theory, right? When was Descartes around? 200 years ago? Like, let's get past Descartes, folks. I'm serious. Like, he split the mind and body 200 years ago, and we're still on that. Like, we operate in a medieval sort of academic culture. Like, we have to get beyond that idea that somehow our minds are here, our bodies are here. And this approach, right, we fuse both together, that emotion, the soul, the body, all, you're teaching that entire system when that student walks in. Okay, so this is a quick little exercise. You don't have to write it. It's kind of dark in here, but just think about it, okay? Why did you decide to go into education? What is your purpose for working with community college students? Just in one line. Let me get a volunteer. Raise your hand. I have a free book for a volunteer. Oh, look at that. All the way over there. Let's see. Let me come visit you. Okay. So tell me. To pay it forward. And what do you mean by that? So you were a first-generation college student, and there were barriers, and what happened? Long road. Did you do it alone? Who helped you? This campus. Wow. And now what do you do? But what is your official role? Student life coordinator who was helped by this campus is now working here to pay it forward. And what's your name? Julie. How about that purpose? Okay. How about over here? What's your purpose? Why did you go into education? Someone actually raised their hand over here. Yes, sir.
I call it giving back.
Giving back.
But I came to the community college system.
You came to the community college system.
I wasn't a gang member, but I was a loser.
Not a gang member, but a loser. Troubled child. Let's change our labels. You weren't a loser. You were at promise. You couldn't have gone to a university. But they opened your door. And you had the community college helped you. You had a wonderful career. What career was that?
I was an engineer.
Engineer. Wow. You just called yourself a loser as a young person, but now you told me you just had a wonderful career as an engineer. So you see, this is important, right? The fluidity of human beings. Like at one stage, you could be considered or consider yourself a loser. I wouldn't call you that. I would call you at promise. And all of a sudden, you kind of transition into wonderful careers in engineering. And now what do you do here?
I teach mathematics.
Teaches mathematics. And I bet you tell that story to the students. You should.
Different version.
You should. This is what I mean. You saw my story earlier, right? If you want to connect to your audience, your students, tell them a little bit about yourself. Compel them, and they'll be like, whoa. So that's another form of emotional support. You don't even have to be like, hey, I believe in you. Hey, I'll be here for you. You want me to be your therapist? That's not what I'm asking you to do. But you just say, hey, you know what? When I was little, I was a troublemaker. And in high school, I got in a fight, got kicked out. I had a 2.1 GPA. No university would have accepted me. So guess what? I went to community college, and they taught me how to be a mathematician. And then they're like, whoa, this guy's like me. I got kicked out of high school too. What's your name? Ruth. Bruce. All right, Bruce. Thank you. Sorry. Okay. So, keep this in mind, because when I ask you, what did you go into teaching for? Many of you will tell me to give back, to help others like someone helped me, or some of you might say, because no one helped me. And I want to help people because no one helped me. Right? So your purpose, keep that in mind as you continue to work in a system that sometimes, right, higher education could be stale, could be bureaucratic, could be subject-based, right? And remember that it's our purpose that drove us here, and it's our purpose that should be on a day-to-day level utilized to work with our students. At the end of the day, it's people like you that make a difference. At the end of the day, my educator, my teacher, high school, saw something in me. She saw something that I didn't even see in myself. And so right when I was getting ready to graduate college, she says to me, Victor, I'm so proud of you. I knew you could do it. Now it's time to go to college. College, me? Man, what is this teacher smoking thinking I'm going to college? Supposed to be like a landscaper or a mechanic. So with the help of students, at the time it was Vista Community College in Berkeley, now it's Berkeley Community College. And UC Berkeley students that were tutoring us at the high school, they started to teach me what college was about. I started to go to this evening class at the community college to catch up with my credits at high school that I had lost. And people started helping me and teaching me about college. Started to get some good mentoring. And I applied to college. A few months later, I get a letter and it says, congratulations, you've been admitted to California State University. I couldn't believe my eyes. And right below, there was another paragraph that was hard to understand. And it was something called academic probation. And I got admitted under some second chance, EOP, summer bridge, you name the program for at-promise populations, every TRIO program and more, I was in. But under probationary status. It said, you've been admitted under, probationary status, something like that. I said, probation? I'm already on probation. That don't matter. I didn't know they were talking about academic probation. I thought some PO was going to be following me around with a can of mace, every lecture hall, every classroom to make sure I didn't beat up the professor. That was the naivete I had. Think about it, like you meet me now, you're like, oh, this is, whatever, Dr. Rios, blah, blah, blah. But you meet me back then, you're like, well, this kid has no clue. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. You're going to run into populations where you're like, whoa, this guy has no clue. Right? A lot of the kids I work with, they used to do this more and more 5, 6 years back. Started to change. But they would enroll in community college just to get their financial aid, and then they would leave. And you think, like, man, they're abusing the system. But one of these boys, I set him up. It was like a little setup. I'm like, go back. And I knew he was doing this. I'm like, go back. Go to financial aid. He goes. And then there was this program there for guys that had been in and out of the criminal justice system. And then he met one guy there that was running it. They clicked. He got enrolled in the program. And now he tells the story about how embarrassed he is that he was using the system. But he ended up transferring to UC Davis. So, sometimes we might think this person is not going to make it, but that's, again, not our job to judge them. So I go to Cal State. I worked full-time, and I went to school full-time. And it was Cal State East Bay. And graduated. And right before graduation, same thing. I started thinking, well, all I've been through in life, I want the highest possible degree I could possibly get. What is that? And then I started eliminating all the degrees that I knew I probably didn't have a chance to go for. Okay, not medical school because I didn't even take any biology. Law school, maybe. I applied for a PhD at Berkeley. I got accepted. I don't know what they were thinking. Letting me into Berkeley. But I got in and had a tough time, but I had more programs. Now they had the GOP, Graduate Opportunity Program, and people there helping and guiding me through the process. At Berkeley, it takes 7 years, and that's normative time to get a PhD. It took me 4.5 years. Why? Because of the people that helped me along the way. Because of the mentors, because of the teachers, because of people like you, I found a key. When you provide people that emotional support, they'll thrive. Not all of them, but many of them. They'll feel a deep connection with the system, because at the end of the day, you represent that system. So can someone tell me, what key did my education give me? To the Mercedes-Benz. What else? The belief that I could do it. A dog. What else? Family and home. What else? Job opportunities. Security. Success. Freedom. Choices. How to work smart. To give back. I have to tell you, the first thing I did, I graduated on a Sunday, went to the bank on the Monday after. Asked for a home loan, got a home loan pre-approval, then an approval later on. A few months later, I'm looking for a home. A few months later, purchase a home. A few months later, it's a process. Get the key to the house. I go, put the key in my pocket, drive to my mom's dilapidated apartment. I knock on her door. She opens the door. And you know that look a mom gives you after she hasn't seen you in a while. ¿Qué pasó, mijo? How are you, son? I said, I was nervous, my legs shaking. I put my hand in my pocket. I said, Mom, I'm sorry you had to wait 30 years for this, but here are the keys to your house. You see, the work that you do is about life or death. The work that you do as educators in higher education is about opening doors of opportunity to people that have been left behind. And the caution here is that you could also be gatekeepers. You can also shut those doors of opportunity down, one teacher at a time, one test at a time, one course at a time. And so think about that as you move forward this year, meeting these individuals where they're at, providing them, finding practical ways to provide them emotional support. The way I do it in my Intro to Sociology class, 550 students, how do you connect to every single one? You know how? Vicariously. I march around the lecture hall 15 minutes before lecture, and I check in with as many as I can. Most of them are the ones at the edges. Some of them sit right in the middle, so I don't talk to them. But I wave. And I even creep in there sometimes because I know they're avoiding me. Some have headphones on, and I'm talking to them, and they still have their headphones on. I'm still talking to them. And finally they're like, I'm like, how's midterms going? How's your other classes? Where are you from? And then they tell me, they smile, they put their headphones, now they have a smile on their face. Now I just connected with 20 students, not 550, but guess what the other 530 are saying? Whoa, that professor, he's relatable. And I don't do it to get good student evals or chili pepper on my rate my professor. You know why I do it? I do it because I know that maybe that kid's having a hard time. Maybe that kid's ready to drop out. Maybe that kid, at any given moment of my 550 students, I know someone's ready to have, just statistically speaking, a breakdown. And if I can connect with them before that happens, then I've opened another door of opportunity. So as you move forward, I want you to think about those strategies of how to connect with your students, and it doesn't have to be every single one, every single time. Now, a couple things in terms of thinking about how to connect. I want to see you're intellectuals, so I want to see if you could kind of keep this concept in mind that we've developed over time. And this is the idea of educator projected self-actualization. This is when you as an educator show a picture to the student that is of the student 10, 20 years, 5 years from now. This is who you are. And the student's like, no way. And you're like, yeah, I see it. You see it right here? I see it. The student's like, you're high. And you're like, no, I see it. And what Miss Russ did is one day we were talking and she said, and I was a high school kid, one day, Victor, you will at vice presidents. That, I don't know when the invitation will come, but I'm here. I'm waiting. But I got another invitation a couple years back from the Obama administration to go advise them on policing and gun violence in America. Went to the Eisenhower building, sat with his domestic policy council, went to the lawn, sorry, not the yard, the lawn, the White House lawn, sat right next to Bernie Sanders and all the other Congress people, senators, and got to shake President Obama's hand. I haven't washed my hands ever since. You want to shake the hand that shook Obama's hand? It's right here. And then a month later, I mean, I was on a roll. A month later, I get an email from the Vice President's office, Joe Biden at the time. And it was celebrating National Hispanic Heritage Month. And it was for Hispanic leaders. So then I called in to make sure it was an email, so I thought it was like spam, junk mail. I almost deleted it, but then I caught the number. They're like, no, we would like you to come, and National Hispanic, heritage. I said, oh, you mean Latino heritage? And we have these internal, right, disputes about how to label us, but Latino is best. And they're like, yes, sir. And you're gonna, there's gonna be Latino leaders from throughout the country. And I said, well, who are these leaders? And they said, you're one of them. And I show up and got to, meet Joe Biden and Dr. Biden. You know who Dr. Biden is, right? She's a community college professor. Did you know that? And her number one thing, and it's still trickling down, by the way, her initiatives, she was looking for model community college programs for students, and she actually looked to California, because California community colleges were doing incredible stuff. She was visiting different colleges, and that's what we talked about, like the second chances, the final frontier of educational hope for students. She liked that concept when I talked to her about it, that's where it's at, the community college. So here's my point, that in creating this positive environment for me where I felt an emotional connection, and in the Educator projecting a self-actualization that I didn't even realize was going to take place until 20 years from then, my life course was changed. So when I tell you that the work you do is about life or death, and that it's life-changing, I mean it. Because of someone like you, I became who I am today. My mentors believed in me so much, they tricked me into believing in myself. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Great job. Picture. So I had to hop up here to shake the hand that shook Obama's hand. So that was my main purpose. But I want to make sure that you know that this is just really the kind of the first taste. You're going to have an opportunity to hear more from Dr. Victor Rios after lunch. So I want to let you know what's next on the agenda. We are going to head out to the plaza. We'll have lunch out there. It's a great opportunity to celebrate your fellow employees. We're going to be celebrating some employee milestones. We're going to be honoring and welcoming some of our new employees. And then after lunch, we'll meet at 1:30 in the Student Center. And we'll break out into 2 different groups, and each group will have an opportunity to engage with Dr. Victor Rios and go kind of deeper into this work. And there will be another group that will be doing work on accreditation and getting an update on governance, and then they'll kind of flip at the break. So hopefully we'll head on out to the plaza now, and then we'll see you at 1:30 in the Student Center. Once again, thank you to Dr. Victor Rios. Pleasure to have you here today.